Hey, good morning, everyone. We are on the record. I don't have to tell anybody to silence their cell phones or be quiet because it's very quiet in here. Today is Thursday, the 23rd day of July in the year 2026. This is a budget hearing for the Mayor's Office and Cultural Affairs with the Jersey City Municipal Council. We have a scheduled 10 a.m. start. The clock on my cell phone is showing 10:07 a.m. May we have a roll call for the commencement of this budget hearing? Councilperson Brooks.
Here.
Councilperson Zupa is not here. Councilperson Efros.
Here.
Councilperson Little.
Here.
Councilperson Gilmore.
Present.
Councilperson Singh.
Here.
Councilperson Griffin is not here. Councilperson Navarro.
Here.
And Council President Ridley.
Here.
We have 7 members in attendance at 10:07 a.m. In addition, at the time of its preparation, the notice of this meeting was similarly disseminated on Friday, July 17th, 2026 at 3 p.m. to the mayor, municipal council, business administrator, corporation council, and local newspapers, so I can certify as to our total compliance with the Sunshine Law. Council President, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. This is day 3 of our budget hearings. This morning, we are reviewing the mayor's office and also our cultural affairs department. We have the mayor's presentation is a little more lengthy than the other departments, so we're going to start there. And the mayor's chief of staff, Laura Bustamante, will be presenting on behalf of that office. Similar to other budget hearings, I'm going to ask that you allow her to get through the presentation, and then we will go back with questions. Because it is a very detailed presentation, I will ask that after she finishes the presentation, if we have questions specific to her presentation, because there's a lot of information in there, that we start there. And then we can go into the budget questions, the line items of the budget questions. So that's it. And I'll hand it over to Laura. One second,
It's a
Laura.
little bit of a lag. Is the green light on the?
Better?
That's
There we go. Okay. Better late than never. Okay. Good morning, members of the city. Okay, here we go. Good morning, members of the city council, council president. It is an honor to be here before all of you to present our office of the mayor. Before I get started, as council president mentioned, we have Christine Goodman here, director of cultural affairs, and then I also have Crystal Mejia Askey, who's our deputy chief of staff, and works hand in hand with me every day. Our budget is combined with the cultural affairs budget, which is why we are here together. So I think it's important to just make sure people understand that we are seen as one department, mayor's office and cultural affairs, which is again why we're making this presentation together. First, I'll just speak a little bit to what the mayor's office does. So we are the executive office of this city. We set citywide priorities, we support department heads, we hold them to deadlines, we help project manage a lot of the initiatives, and we work with the business administrator through those department directors to make sure that we're delivering core city services to our residents. Another part of the mayor's office is our Office of Cultural Affairs, which really signifies the diversity and vibrancy of Jersey City. The Cultural Affairs Office leads on arts advocacy, public event coordination, permitting, the Arts and Culture Trust Fund, and also oversees the Bethune Life Center. I'll let Christine speak to that later on in her presentation. But again, the Cultural Affairs Office does a significant amount of work to be able to celebrate the vibrancy and culture of our city. Another thing that we have done under the Solomon administration is that we have worked hand in hand with the Resident Response Center. We have seen an increase of 37.6% to RRC cases that have come through, and we work hand in hand with that department to be able to deliver core city services to our residents, be able to solve their issues, and ensure that when people call City Hall or use Click Fix, we are able to help them in their everyday needs. Since we took office, we have been able to solve 17,200 cases across all 6 wards for our residents. Again, making sure that when people call, we answer. In addition to what we have committed early on is 100 community meetings. And so we want to ensure that our office is out into the community, that the mayor is present and can speak to all Jersey City residents, no matter what neighborhood they live in. And I want to highlight that the Office of Cultural Affairs has done over 200 public events permitted by the Cultural Affairs Department. Again, really expanding that vibrancy across the city. It is no secret that when our administration came in, we found a $255 million deficit. When we walked in, one of the first things we did was hire our finance director and CFO to ensure that we had that we were able to tackle on the city finance, the deficit that we had in order to stabilize our city finances. This was extremely important. We hit the ground running, immediately made our budget report available to communicate not only with all of you, but to members of the public, how dark and how deep that hole was, and immediately started advocating with the state of Trenton, being able to secure $120 million aid package to be able to partially fill that hole. We also immediately started putting financial controls alongside our finance department to make sure that we started to stabilize our city finances. The next thing we did was we immediately looked to restore reliable city services. Many of you remember that we had a historic snowstorm. Our office led and supported the Department of Public Works to be able to adequately respond to the snowstorms that we were hit with in the months of February, as well as work closely with Resident Response Center by modernizing our systems, being able to adequately do snow removal, as well as be able to help residents during that historic snowstorm. And it's only one example of all the different things that we have done to restore city services by modernizing our systems and having government efficiencies across all different departments. We also immediately started working by bringing in Director Ambrose, our new Director of Public Safety, to modernize our public safety department. We thought it was extremely important that when a resident calls 911, that somebody picks up. So we have modernized our 911 system. We have worked to launch our traffic enforcement, and we have also made launch our JC Impact, which shows readily available data, crime data to our residents, so people can see exactly what's happening in the city. Again, those are things that we have done to modernize our public safety department. In addition to that, despite our fiscal crisis, we have invested in young people and students. We have, speak more to this, but we have been able to more than double the Jersey City youth programs to be able to give young children an opportunity that they didn't have before this summer to work across all different sectors of government and in other industries as well. And last, but certainly not least, we have totally changed the way that Jersey City engages with developers. We are prioritizing affordable housing, and we are also ensuring that we are able to keep tenants in their homes by launching a rent control audit, which will be made available to all of you in the coming weeks. So it is not only about building affordable housing, but also ensuring that tenants that currently live in our city are able to stay in our city. As I mentioned earlier on, when we walked in the door, we were hit with a $255 million structural deficit that we immediately disclosed publicly and immediately hit the ground running to be able to address. One of the first things that we did alongside all of you and in partnership with all of you was we cut $30 million by switching healthcare insurance to equal to or better coverage alongside also the partnership of our unions, and we're able to save that. We also immediately started applying for grants and have since applied for $54 million in grants in just 4 months. We have also canceled the Pompidou that saved us $40 million and in turn turned that project into affordable housing. We want to continue to advance development projects such as Canal Crossing that have 20% affordable housing, rents under $1,000, and a public benefit like a park for our community. And in addition to that, we've launched in May our traffic enforcement division, which many people have seen and have really felt in our community. Just in May, we have seen over 5,000 traffic citations to ensure that we are cracking down on on bad drivers and making sure we're keeping our pedestrians safe. And then we've gone down to the basic. We have fixed government by bringing in a pothole crew that has filled over 4,000 potholes since they were established to make sure that our roads are safe and that we are properly addressing road pavements. Now, I want to speak to a cornerstone of our administration. Under the leadership of Mayor Solomon and Deputy Mayor Bryant, we have made youth a center of our administration. We have not allowed the fiscal crisis to be an excuse for us to not deliver core city services and certainly to not limit the opportunities that our youth have in our city. Under the Deputy Mayor's leadership, she was able to fundraise through grants, through philanthropic dollars, and bring in $4.4 million, which were used for recreation, for parks, and for our summer youth jobs. As I mentioned earlier, we have more than doubled the number of youth opportunities in the city just from last year. We have 624 youth across the ages of 15 to 24 through our Jersey City Next program. And I will be able to show where most of the views are come from in a little bit. And in addition to placing people in government service, we have partnered with 116 different industries citywide to ensure that youth have access to those different types of employers and so that they're gaining a significant amount of opportunity. I also want to highlight that we don't only do the big things like major youth investment, we also do small things that are really important to the community. Under the leadership of Tommy Best, we have launched an adaptive swim lessons, extending inclusive recreation to residents with disabilities for the first time ever. So we're not only talking about youths that are 15 to 24, we are talking about people of all different ages, increasing our programming as well to seniors and making sure that there is a significant investment for activities for them to do that. We have been able to do this with no added cost and no added staffing due to our ability to be able to bring in grants and philanthropic investments, and also through government efficiencies and using our current talented staff to be able to do better programming. A common theme that we have seen, I'm sure, in these budget hearings is that we are doing more with less. And so this is an example of how we have continued to deliver, not use the fiscal crisis as an excuse, and use government efficiencies to be able to really deliver for our youth, our seniors, and all other folks in our communities. And I just wanted to highlight here who is benefiting from Jersey City Next. As you could see this map here, where we knew when we launched this program that we wanted to invest in the South Side and children in all different corners of Jersey City. Majority of our Jersey City Next youth programming are kids that are south of Communipol. We're really proud of that investment, and we're really excited to see how much more we can grow this program. As I mentioned, just in 6 months, we have over 600 jobs, and we're really excited to see how much more that will grow, and wanted to make sure you all saw these are where the children, the addresses of the children themselves is reflected in this map. The second cornerstone of our administration, again, not in a priority level, is affordable housing. Under the leadership of Mayor Solomon and Deputy Mayor Podar, we have totally flipped the switch in how we do development in Jersey City. For decades, Jersey City did not prioritize affordable housing. The mayor has never taken a single dollar from developer money, has never taken a single dollar from developers, and therefore we can show up to the negotiating table to ensure that we are fighting for Jersey City residents. We have roughly 50 redevelopment projects in active negotiations, and since we took office, we have approved 597 affordable housing units. This is a commitment to building affordable homes. It is a commitment to ensure that when we are at the table and we are investing public dollars in projects, there is a core public commitment that comes along with that, whether it's affordable housing, fair wages for the folks building those projects, parks, community centers, or recreation centers. We want to ensure that at every single deal, Jersey City residents get their fair share for the land. Again, I spoke to our affordable housing portfolio isn't just about building new housing and building affordable, but it's also about protecting our tenants through a rent control audit, which we will launch in the coming weeks. And as well to making sure that our tenants have the right protections to be able to stay in their homes as we have seen different slumlords. So another core part of what we've done here under housing is we have taken on slumlords to make sure that they're paying their fair share and people are living in adequate conditions. So as another cornerstone of our affordable housing project, and we will continue to change the narrative in how Jersey City does businesses with developers. Now I want to speak to our budget. As I mentioned before, this is a department summary, so we are down 4.84%. I'm going to speak to the different cuts that we have made to be able to have government efficiencies and be able to reduce our overall budget during the times that we're in right now. As you all know, we continue to speak to needing to do more with less. So what we have done, came into this administration, is we found roughly $300,000 in savings in our overall budget. How we were able to find those savings and what the cuts that we made is we first started by reducing our overtime from $34,000 to $25,000. And we have also not filled all of our positions. So in the mayor's office, you're allowed to have 10 aides per the Faulkner Act. We only have hired 7 aides. Other expenses is we totally cut from zero things such as food costs, agricultural costs, petty cash, our cable boxes, and found a total savings of $21,143. We have also reduced through government efficiencies and better programming. We've shifted from doing our events on taxpayer dollars to a full sponsorship and grants model. So we have raised for events such as the World on Central, Flag Cities, all of that has been done through grants or philanthropic private dollars. And we have been able to significantly reduce that cost for that programming alongside the leadership of Crystal and Christine Goodman. That is how we've been able to really offset significant amount of costing. So we have totally shifted that and we're able to obviously celebrate. Another example of that is our America 250th anniversary. Macy's fully paid for our fireworks, where in the past we had been paying for those things and taxpayer dollars have been doing that. And then last but not least, we have reduced rents by $10,281. Those are things for like chairs, tables, tents. So we are tightening the way that we do our events and making sure we're only spending and programming for the things we absolutely need to ensure that we're being very vigilant with taxpayer dollars. Now, looking ahead, the last 6 months have certainly been a lot for our city all around, but we are committed to ensuring that we continue to do more for Jersey City residents with less, and that we do not use the fiscal crisis as an excuse to not deliver for Jersey City residents. So our commitment for the next year is to end the luxury on development model. Again, we are going to be at the negotiating table time and time again to be able to show a model that works for Jersey City residents when it comes to building housing. We're looking at models such as Canal Crossing that has 20% affordable housing, $1,000 rents, union labor, and a public open space. We will not compromise on using public dollars without there being a true public benefit. The second is Vision Zero. We will end traffic violence in Jersey City. I am the chair of the Vision Zero Task Force. Under my leadership, we launch our traffic enforcement division. We also have modernized our 911 system, and we will continue to make those improvements to ensure that we do not continue to see pedestrian deaths in our cities and ensure that we are making all data publicly available. In addition to our JC Impact, we are working on a Vision Zero dashboard as well that will make that information publicly available to the full public. We will continue to work on closing our structural deficit and put in fiscal controls. These are dire times, and we believe that as we continue to work on our budget and continue to work with all of you and our departments, we will be able to get to a good financial footing. One of the ways in which we're going to do that is by conducting and finalizing our health insurance audit, which is currently underway, and continuing to find cuts, raise revenue, apply for more grants to be able to offset any cost to taxpayer dollars. And last but certainly not least, we want to continue to invest in our youth. As I mentioned, we more than doubled what the previous administration did when it came to placing some youth in summer jobs. And we are very excited to continue to grow that initiative, again, through private philanthropic dollars as well as grant funding. And with that, I will turn it to Christine Goodman for Cultural Affairs.
We're going to take a pause in between.
Okay.
Just address your presentation because there was a lot in there. So I want to see if the council has any questions, not necessarily on the budget yet. We'll go to the budget after the presentation, but I just want to see if anyone has questions from Laura's presentation. I know she covered a lot in there. Are there any questions on her presentation?
I have some questions. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Councilman.
Hi, Mayor's team. Crystal. Pleasure to be with you all. And of course, Ruby and Kyle again, to see you again. So you referenced in your presentation 50 redevelopment plan projects. Projects are in active negotiation across every ward. Can you speak to who was at the table in these negotiations? Not necessarily for every project individually, but just kind of generally what the table looks like in representing the city in these negotiations, and is 20% affordable housing actively being negotiated in all these projects?
Thank you for the question. Yep. So the majority of the two people that are always at the table for these negotiations are Deputy Mayor Podar and Anicia, our director of HEDC. So those are the two. And then we have our city attorneys. And then depending on the project, that table might differ. But those are our two leaders that are always at the negotiating table. In terms of the 20% affordable, that is what we tend to lean with. Now, I will say there are other public benefits that we always consider as well when it comes to the financing of a project, whether that be a new school, whether that be a new park, a community center. But we are leading with aggressively the most amount of affordable housing that we can get in a project, depending on the financing.
This just for the record, I've already expressed this in the past, going back months now. I will just put it on the record again that for me, it's leading with. And so when things come to this council, and I know other council people have different views on this as well. I'm different from me on this, but for myself on the record, 20% is the lead, and kind of negotiating it down has to be the developer presenting rationales and justifications that are tested by the administration to ensure that that promise, which we made as a team to do 20% affordable housing, can be reduced, not compromised, and traded off. There was lawsuits around this about trading off affordability, lawsuits that the previous administration lost on this. Different circumstances in some cases for sure, but my hope is that this administration will lead with that and hold the line on the 20%. moving forward in all these sort of negotiations. The other thing I would add is that council people in the wards and seeing projects or requests to open redevelopment plans and other things and other projects have come before the council already that have been withdrawn and represented. And council members, including ward council people, expressing that they have not necessarily been consulted in that regard. And I think they should be at the table. Obviously, I would like to be at the table, but I can't be at every table all the time as an at-large councilman. And I don't have the benefit of all the additional resources of the city in that regard, but certainly being consulted is certainly desirable. And so those are the two comments I would make just in response to all of that.
Thank you, Councilman.
I have a few questions. With regards to the 40 million saved by canceling the Pompidou, can you explain, like, how does that look? Because, you know, some people is like, well, the Pompidou was never here, how you saving money? So if you can just explain how that 40 million in savings look and talk about the, I guess, the affordable component, since it's no longer going to be the arts area.
Yeah, certainly, Councilman. So for the $40 million in the Pompidou, my understanding is that there was a specific bond that was going to go to that. So we are not using that money and we are saving that money. So it's not going to be spent. And then to Councilman Navarro's earlier point is leading with affordable housing. So the public benefit for that project, the administration was very clear that what we wanted for that project in terms of the public was the affordable housing component to it.
Oh, so be clear, the money that's saved is the 40 million that was bonded for.
That's right.
Okay. As it relates to 5,000 citations for traffic citations since May, and I asked this of, I think, public safety, is one thing for citations, but is there any data on like the actual outcomes of these cases? As it relates to if they were dismissed, the plea bargain, what actual dollar amount does those citations represent?
So I think I spoke to this at the public safety hearing as well. And when the municipal court comes before you next Wednesday, they'll be prepared to explain this too. There are different departments tracking different parts of that life cycle that you're talking about, from issuing a summons to adjudication and then, you know, payment. Because there are different units involved, it's about piecing together all of that data. And the municipal court has a lot of that data, but it's in a state system that is very hard for us to pull out of. It is a project we're actively working on, and we're trying to, from a performance management perspective, as you're saying, take a look at that life cycle so that we can understand from point of issuance to adjudication and payment what that trend looks like. So at the moment, we don't have that full life cycle. We have pieces of it, and it is on our list in terms of the information requested.
And so next week, municipal court to be able to shed a little more light on how, okay.
Thank you, Laura, Director Goodman and Crystal, for presenting the budget. Ms. Choi, I have a question on this. So how much time it takes to know the revenue we are generating through these? So what's the duration? When can we have an idea about that? This is the amount we have through this traffic enforcement.
So if I understand your question correctly, we are tracking, not me personally, but finance is tracking, and the municipal court is tracking a lot of the payments on all kinds of summonses and fines. If we're talking about analysis, comparing the payment of this based on the type of summons and types of, you know, violations we're issuing, that's the part that is tricky.
We know the amount, the money, the payments that are coming in, but doing that analysis, tracking it back to the trends of who is paying, who is not paying, are they repeat offenders? That's the piece that we have to work on. So does that,
Yes, but just for an idea, how much do you think time it takes to figure out that in past 3 months, these many tickets were given and this was the expected amount or something like that? Just a little idea about it.
we have a team that's scoping this out right now, so I will get back to you, but we don't have an estimate right now.
Got it. Thank you, Ms. Choi.
Also, you spoke to the fact of 4,000 potholes were filled. That's great, but I know I can ride down Ocean Avenue and feel like I'm in a movie out of the 1930s with regards to all of these potholes and things in the street. And I think this is it's more of a problem of these contractors more so than the city, because that corridor of Ocean have been repaved, and then it looks like they went in the ground to do work. So I guess my question is, like, what does the follow-up mechanism looks like when these contractors are going into the ground and fixing things and not leaving a road back in the condition it was when they encountered?
Yeah, thank you, Councilman. So on that front, recognize that there is first a lot of work to do and continue to do when it comes to pothole filling as well as repaving. So that is going to continue to be something that this administration continues to focus on and works on through the rest of the year. So not just using the pothole crew, but also using road repaving. And we're happy to work with all of you to ensure that your priority streets are obviously taken care of. So we'll work in partnership on that front. On the part of the developers and the coordination, this is where I think modernizing our government systems is extremely important, and we're having key city leadership oversee and be able to connect the dots of different departments. In the previous past, there's lack of communication and coordination across all different government agencies outside of the city, like the JCMUA, JCRA. And so our administration is going to continue to work on those efficiencies and communication channels so that when something like that happens, we're not first repaving and then a developer comes in, strips up the road, and then we're not holding them accountable to repave the road. Also, that is, in my opinion, not a good use of taxpayer dollars. If we know there's a development project that's going to rip up the road, we shouldn't repave the road right beforehand. So there's a lot of coordination that happens there. And one of our key leads in the mayor's office that will continue to work on that is Deputy Mayor Podar. That is his role, is to ensure that not only is he working with HEDC, but all these other government agencies to ensure that there is clear coordination, communication, and planning so that we are not misusing taxpayer dollars and we're delivering more and that we're able to hold our developers accountable.
Okay, thank you. And I think this is my last question. As it relates to the grant, I see you guys have applied for a great deal of grants and have received a great deal of grants. I remember when I was in recreation, we had the Stop the Drop program, and that was a grant through the state. And outside of keeping the community clean, it was actual like a education element where they talked about the psychological damages to the environment, the physical damage to the environment when people litter. So it was like a whole education component. So I guess my question is that grant still available? Do we intend to apply for it? Yes, so yeah, have you guys checked to see if that grant was still available? I mean, because I think it was like 100 and some people in just that program alone.
Yeah. So I am not 100% certain whether that grant is available or not, but that is a great idea. We are happy to make sure to work together with our grants team to take a look. And if we haven't applied for that grant, we'll make sure to do so. And obviously happy to reach out to you regarding that since you have some experience with that grant in the past. So we will make sure to follow up with you on that specific grant.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Laura, Can you please clarify how many deputy mayors were there in the last administrations?
Certainly, yeah. The previous administration had two deputy mayors. However, in the last year, there were no deputy mayors, but historically, the city our size is allocated through the Faulkner Act two deputy mayors, and the previous administration historically has had two deputy mayors. They're different staffing at different times. So in the previous, like last year, there was no deputy mayors, but they did have deputy mayors in their administration.
Councilman Ambrose.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I just have some questions on the personnel. And I want to start with just clarification on Tarlise's position promoted to management. If you could explain what that promotion to management means and how it affects the work or the salary.
Yep, absolutely. So I think you're referring to Tara and promotion. Yep. So she is what we did was we consolidated her position. So she absorbed responsibilities of what used to be another position, which was an assistant. Before, when she was under the previous administration, she was just a secretary. And so that promotion is because she is now an executive assistant. So instead of hiring two people, an executive assistant and a secretary, we have consolidated, which have found some savings when it comes to our healthcare costs because you're having one person do the job of two. And obviously, because she has additional responsibilities, she has then been promoted to management based off of the the promotion that we gave her.
Thank you. And
Question on this? Are you doing, Laura, a question on this? Are you doing the same thing with other positions, like combining responsibility with one position, or this is the only position you have done it?
Yeah, certainly. As I mentioned before, we have allocated 10 aides. What we have done is only hired 7 and giving those individual people significant more responsibilities as opposed to growing our headcount, increasing our cost on healthcare. Instead, we have less people doing more, which has overall found significant savings.
Thank you.
I just have a couple more questions of the director. There's a new hire, a recent hire, who's moved from council office into the mayor's office, I believe, who's not yet reflected on the budget worksheet. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct, mainly because that transfer happened after our budget.
Okay, if we could just get an updated budget worksheet, that'd be helpful. If we could get an updated budget worksheet, that would be super helpful as well. And then just on the note that Councilwoman Singh was bringing up, I wanted to just clarify the roles of the different mayor's aides. I know you have some justification and comments here for each one, but certainly if there's any kind of like job description for each aide that could be sent to council, I think that would be really helpful as well, just to make sure that it's very clear what each position in the office is assigned to. And I think, Crystal, under your position, you have intergovernmental affairs in the justification and comments, replacement for Phil or fees, but I think that belongs to Stu. So just looking at the, what looks like a typo or a switch of the cells in there, that could be amended.
Yep, no problem. We're happy to follow up on a new workbook.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To piggyback off Councilman Efros's points, you know,
And council, I don't want to get too deep into the workbook yet. I just want to make sure that nobody else has questions for the presentations, like anything off of the slides, and then we can jump into the workbook.
this is, so it's related to the workbook, but
Okay.
it's directly related to a point that Councilman Efros brought up. Do you want me to hold it?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So for the scheduler position that Isabel just started recently, my understanding is previously Pam was in that position, and then it was maybe vacant for a couple of months, and now it will be Isabel. But considering that the majority of the year there has been a scheduler, it's a little surprising to me that there's not a line item for that. And you know, I just would like to see like a accurate budget spreadsheet.
Certainly, as I'm committed to, we will provide a new workbook.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my last, not necessarily a question, but my last statement as it relates to the proposed calendar year budget, see according to all of this math that the mayor's office is down nearly 5%. I think that is great, but I mean, ultimately, I would like to see every, like, I would like to see the rate of the taxes be indicative of cuts in departments. Because I just feel like when you put emphasis on asking people to give and you're willing to make sacrifices, I just think that sets a good precedence for good government. So I mean, 5% is good, but you know, the tax rate is 15%. I was always of the opinion that if we can find a common ground with the rate and then a cut in municipal government, I think that would have been a more of a fair approach. But like I said, I do see it down 5%. And that's going to be the overarching theme, even after the budget is voted on. Young lady called me today. Councilman Gilmore, what the bleepity bleep bleep? You know, my taxes went up 21% because, you know, they don't know that you have to catch up for quarter 1 and quarter 2. And the increase is not necessarily 21, but, you know, people are like just irate. So I always try to, you know, have reason with them. And it's, well, you know, we've cut X amount too, you know, if your taxes went up 12%, the municipal government cut services by 12%. So I mean, I don't know where that fine line is as it relates to those cuts. I just know that if we're going to constantly ask the taxpayer to foot the bill, then we have to, you know, make sacrifices ourselves. I always tell my son all the time, you know, we work out, I hold him accountable. And he said, well, Dad, you can't be eating snacks neither. So, you know, it's about, you know, accountability all the way around.
Can I say something on this, Laura? Actually, I really like what Councilman is saying because let's see, the public safety has 5 million cut. So it would be 1.1%, I believe, tax reduction. So when we talk like that, our mayor's office is cutting 1%, 4 million, just making it up. When people read or see this, because there's a lot of misinformation, and this person is getting $500,000 salary. That is not true, but obviously that has been going on. But when we talk about this department has 1% reduction for taxpayers, I think people will understand more because, you know, as I said, there is a lot of wrong information going around. And to make it easy, I think Councilman's point is pretty strong that people will understand more that what administration is doing, what all these departments are doing, just the taxpayer can understand it better.
Yeah, I appreciate that sentiment, and we wholeheartedly agree around what we need to be doing. We're committed to that. As I mentioned, one of our core priorities is putting in place fiscal controls, making sure there's more efficiencies. I also want to speak to the fact that we have a core deliverable. We need to deliver for Jersey City residents. We need to deliver key services. We need to deliver a good government. We need to deliver for our residents. And so in addition to everything you have said, so I'm just going to say 8+1 is also pushing to be creative around revenue streams, around grant funding, around different ways in which you can offset so that we're not only just cutting and reducing services for residents, but also doing our part to really push the way government works for people, and finding different ways in which we can fund these really important programs, be able to deliver for our residents. So again, 100% here, the necessary to continue to put more fiscal controls, cut that down, but also we are very committed to ensuring that we can continue to work really hard to raise the money as well, bring it, and it doesn't fall necessarily in taxpayer dollars. So I say we have to do both. We can't just do one thing. We have to do both.
Councilman Brooks.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Laura. A couple questions. One, in the slideshow, you talked about the awesome work of the RRC. But just to note for the public, the RRC is currently housed under public safety. It's not fiscally part of the mayor's office. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I will say for the record, I don't think it makes sense for it to be there. So I don't know if the mayor's office is, going to look at some kind of reorganization. But yeah, that's just one council person's opinion. Second question on the rent control audit. Waiting with bated breath for that. Do you have any kind of ETA?
So I'll just make a comment on the RRC. Yes, we will be looking to do levels of reorganization. It's part of another way for us to do cost efficiencies. As we all know, we're under civil service, so that is a bit of a longer process, but we are going to be looking at doing reorganizations. And one of the departments we'll be looking to is RRC, as we think it is really imperative that they are a division that is supported all around. I know that the RRC not only serves the mayor's office and helps the mayor's office with that, but it also should be supporting and in helping you all with your constituent services cases. So we will make sure to engage all of you through that process to make sure that there's a level of alignment there. Again, we will be looking to do some levels of reorganizations as well as in attempts to as well find cost efficiencies through that process. On the rent control audit, what we can do is definitely provide a timeline for you all. I can't speak to a specific date, but I can speak to being able to give you all a timeline for that which you can all expect progress on. That way that there is more transparency on that front.
May I ask a quick follow-up? For the rent control audit and for the pilot audit, who is the bottom line? Is the bottom line for both of those in the mayor's office?
Certainly, it's Deputy Mayor Podar, so you could work with him
For each of those?
for both of them, yeah.
Councilman LeVar.
So I'm gonna, just on the relocating RRC, just want to offer the one council person's opinion. You can put it out as city council if you want, for me.
As a city council aide, as a previous city council aide, I could see why you made that comment.
Also on the pilot audit, so Deputy Mayor Podar is spearheading that. Is that under his auspices? Okay. Who's conducting the audit itself? And if I missed it, when is it expected? When I say who, is it an external auditor? Is it internally being done? How is that all being done?
Yeah, I don't want to misspeak, so if I can, I'll just follow up with you on the specifics of, we will give you as much information as we can in that timeline, so I'll be sure to follow up with you on that.
And I'm going to bring this up because it was in the presentation about the grants and the private dollars funding many of our special events and supporting that, philanthropic dollars, private dollars for FIFA and America 250. So I'm going to make an admission of guilt for myself. I don't know if other city council will feel the same way, but we approved those dollars from the UEZ dollars. And so that's what we're talking about for some of that. I mean, there were other private dollars as well, but a good chunk of it came from UEZ dollars. And in hindsight, I look back on that and technically that is private dollars, but it is public dollars. It's UEZ dollars, whether it's Jersey City taxpayers. They come from sales tax, right, from UEZ collections. And we have more authority. Technically, it is private, but everybody who's on the UEZ board, let's not pretend about it. They're all appointed by the mayor and the administration in that regard. And so we approved it as a city council, that allocation. So we bear the brunt and responsibility of that. But in hindsight, I look back at that now and I say, well, we could have used that money knowing our budget crisis the way it is, that and the challenges and the loan and the terms and everything else, we could have used that in other ways. And I'll say that being the oldest guy on the city council, I recall during the Healy administration and even prior to me being on the council in 2011, that they used those dollars, those UEZ dollars, that came through, not through, well, it came through the EDC to fund police patrols on Jackson Hill SID. At that time, there was no Jackson Hill SID. They just, JCPD paid for overtime for patrols. The idea being that that corridor, the business corridor, keeping it safe was a priority, and that they got that approved to use those dollars for that purpose. Not to supplement, but to buttress at that time and improve the safety conditions. I would urge us with the administration to look at the rest of the UEZ allocations, which we've already approved, and to talk to EDC about reimagining and rethinking how we use those dollars. I'm not sure what, I'd have to go back to the records to look at this at this point and see what else we approved those dollars for. But I would urge us all to kind of take a second look at that, and in this budget, but also in 2027, because as has been said, it's going to be a tough 2027 budget year as well, right? So those are my two last points. There's not really a question in there, mostly comments on that.
Okay, okay, let me ask one more, and then I'll hand it over to you. For the JC Next program, in that slide, on the graphic that's used, there's a map. Can we send the council that data? And then also, and you might not know this off the top of your head, because in this is just a graphic, but there are like numbers on those red dots. And if we can just figure out what those numbers represent.
Yeah, certainly, Council President. We can send you the map, the data. Happy to make that available to everyone.
Councilwoman.
Thank you, Council President. Laura, can you please tell us what are the memberships and subscriptions that are being eliminated?
It is Comcast cable bill. So we had a bunch of cable boxes in our office, and we have cut those.
Okay, council, if we have workbook specific questions, we can begin some of those now. Did have question in line with some of the things that Councilwoman Little and Councilman Efros brought up in regards to the workbooks and making sure that we have the new hires included and the scheduler included. But similar to other sessions, I have questions about numbers matching in multiple places. So we have an executive secretary position listed at 95,000. And we're reporting a decrease in that line compared to 2025. But it doesn't match our city records. So while the executive secretary was hired at 95, the current salary is 35,000 more than that at 130, but it's not reflected in this workbook.
Yep. So as a previous council member noted before, we had Pam leave the mayor's office, interim of Pam leaving the office. Our director of operations absorbed the scheduling responsibilities in the interim of finding a new person. So she was, because she absorbed new responsibilities, we were on a temporary basis, gave her the additional salary for that vacancy. And so therefore, now that we have a new scheduler that we've recently just hired, those numbers will be reorganized.
So I need clarification. When you say the numbers are going to be reorganized, does that mean we're decreasing her salary from 130? Right now in the workbook, it says she has a current salary of 95,000, but her current salary is 130,000.
Correct. So she's going to be at the 95K now that we have our scheduler in.
Sorry, just respectfully, I don't know of any other place you work where your coworker leaves and while they're hiring for that new position, you also absorb that former coworker's salary.
We have been doing, this is a history that the city has practice in across all different departments. So when a person leaves and there's a vacancy for a significant amount of time, all city workers that absorb different responsibilities, it's also in our union contracts in some cases, they are oftentimes paid partially for the new responsibilities that they are absorbing. Now, that doesn't apply if somebody's on vacation or things like that. But we have seen that happen with FMLA. We have seen that with paid time off when people are on paternity leave and people leave the city for a significant amount of time. The other employer is absorbing a whole other position. There is a slight change in their salary increase given to be reflective of the responsibilities that they absorbed for a significant amount of time. In this case, we're talking about months of somebody absorbing a full scheduling position for an executive.
Shouldn't that be reflected in the draft then, that even if the 2026 salary is supposed to be at 95K, then the draft of what we need to budget for the whole year is going to be more than 95K if the position was making more than that for many months?
That is a good point. I just want to point out that as far as the budget is introduced, it is at the legal line. So we make an appropriation for the entire office, right? The supplemental details do obviously roll up to that, but considering there's often lag in hire dates and vacancies, promotions, and things of that nature, we make sure that we monitor the payroll projections biweekly to ensure that it does still fall in line with this overall budget. So while this individual may have earned additional wages throughout the year, we are comfortable with, what we're putting forth, that it covers everything January through December. So yes, the details could be more clear, but in order to present a real picture of what the actual budget is for this office and for each position, we just budget the annual wage. In the event we're looking at those projections and there is a potential overrun, we will add in, additional line items to the supplemental details to cover that if it's necessary. In the case of the mayor's office, that's just wasn't necessary due to, like I said, the timing of certain hires and promotions and transfers.
Okay, yeah, it would be helpful to see that because it's just hard to feel clarity that the total amount budgeted here is reflective of what we're going to need to budget. Because in other departments and other of the workbooks, we've seen if a employee is prorated because they were recently hired or they were only, they were recently terminated and they were on for just the first part of the year, we see that, portion of the year's salary reflected in the workbook. So I think it makes sense to see the portion of the year's extra salary reflected in the draft, so we can feel really clear that we're budgeting the right amount.
Yeah, no problem. We can do that for you. Like I mentioned, though, some of the salaries for some of these positions are annualized, and like I said, they may not have been hired until March or April, whatever the case may be. So if you want, we would adjust all those as well, right? So someone at a certain salary now that came in a month ago, we'll reduce those as well, just so you have a better idea of how it works out in the mayor's office. But we just thought this was the cleanest way to present, what the operation of this office is on a basis.
Just to make sure we're working really hard to get the documents up to date. So for this particular request with the mayor's office, we can provide you with that information, but because I'm trying to manage all the other budget workbooks, I don't want us to go through a cycle of editing them again, because then we have to adjust a lot of things. So if it's possible, we focus on just the mayor's office budget workbook updates. And then if there are other updates for different departments, I'm happy to take them individually, if that's okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm now wondering, shouldn't it be a goal that we're consistent across all the departments' workbooks to have the 2026 draft column be reflective of not just what we anticipate an annualized salary be, but reflective of what the actual payout is going to be?
I believe Kyle answered that question. And if he didn't, I'm sorry. In the budget workbooks, there is a column that says current salary. Right. And then there's a column that says 2026 draft.
Right.
So that should be prorated. So if your current salary is 100,000 and we hired you in the middle of the year, 2026 should be prorated.
And I think that that's exactly the issue we're having. We've seen it that way in other budgets, but this mayor's budget isn't set up.
Well,
that-
this is, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just to clarify for the record, this person's current salary is correct in the budget workbook.
No.
Current salary, yes, but to Councilman Efros's point, yes, we do need to adjust it for each individual in the mayor's office. So we have not done that in this case.
Right, the current salary says 95, but the current salary in the payroll system and the HR system is 130, so it's not reflective of the current salary. And I understand what they're saying, she took on other duties because they were replacing, I believe Pam, you mentioned, and I get that, but Pam's position isn't even on this budget workbook, so it's not evening out, like it should say 130, because right now the position for that she was replacing isn't even in this workbook. So we're saying that this year's budget is coming in $55,000 over the 2025 budget from the last administration, but it's really $90,000 over if we put the current salaries in. So we have to figure that out.
And I guess so I just want to make sure I'm understanding this right. The position of the mayor's office is that this individual have taken on an extra task and they should be compensated for doing that.
Yes, during that time, now that we have a new scheduler, her salary in the workbook is what is reflective for the rest of the year. So as you all have requested, we will make the adjustments, but the bottom line does not change. So our total budget will not change. It is just because there is for a short period, that time period of time, she absorbed part of that salary.
Well, I
So
think the
if-
bottom line will change.
Yeah, it is going to change.
Position.
No, I guess she's saying their budget is what they.
No, it's not, because this number here is going to change.
The budget for the mayor's office, the legal line of 1,068,000 is sufficient to cover all of the wages for all of the personnel from January through December. How that is divvied up on a prorated basis, we need to go back and clean that up. They should be under budget, considering, like I said, the timing of hiring an employee at a higher salary at a later date will cover a portion of this in theory, right? Finance will do the work to make that clear to the council. The legal line will not change from now until adoption unless positions are added or if there's a need to account for another vacancy and things of that nature. It is not our intent to amend the total budget for the year.
Right, and that's what I agree with what you just said. You said it's not going to change unless positions are added, but we just said we're adding a position, right? Because the position that the executive secretary is taking on, that we're giving her the extra money for, is not listed in this workbook. So we would be adding an additional position.
We may adjust the detail for that individual, but there may not be a need to amend the total salaries for the year. Like I said,
Because that money.
there should be, right, it may not be specifically from Pam's vacancy. There are deputy mayors that may not have started, like I said, on January 1st. So that is what I'm saying. There's surplus from other positions in this budget as it currently stands. And the way that the detail is currently reflected is just the annual salary for each individual. Not each individual is going to earn that salary this year, like I said, because of the timing of the hiring. The promotion of the one employee to management, that is their annual salary. That person was promoted in April. So you have essentially 4 months of savings on that salary as well. It's just, it does get confusing when we try to do that for every person. We've tried to do this across all departments, but mostly for vacancies that currently exist, or if it's a position that we weren't going to backfill. So if someone left on June 30th, right, and we know we're not going to backfill that position, yes, we may budget for half a year, and you may see that in the details. But what's most important is the legal line, because that needs to cover all expenses regardless of who earns what within that one particular budget. So council is correct. It does not clearly, this workbook does not clearly reflect what each person is going to earn this budget cycle. It reflects their annual salary, but we will go back and clean it up to the best of our ability so you can see who is going to fall short of the annual salary and who's going to earn a little more.
I think what we're saying is there's an entire line item missing for an entire position, and that is the position of scheduler. Sorry, I think what we're saying is there's an entire line item missing, and that's for an entire position, and that's the position of
So-
scheduler.
I'm familiar with this position as well, and that employee's salary is fully allocated elsewhere. So if there's a need to cover additional costs in the mayor's office, we'll we are comfortable that this, what we presented does cover that. If Pam was in the mayor's office for a couple weeks of the year and she earned wages, we still think what's here will cover that. Her annual salary is covered elsewhere as well. There's also a 2-month window at the end of the year for us to make appropriation transfers to cover these one-offs. There's a lot of personnel moves that happen throughout the year, and the budget does not always necessarily capture everything perfectly, right? This is an estimate, so we monitor that biweekly, like I said, and if there's a need to make adjustments, we'll do that. So if Pam's position's budgeted for 12 months elsewhere, in theory, that office will have a surplus as well for the time she spent in the mayor's office. So we will make sure we work all of that out.
Do you know where that but line item is budgeted?
I believe she's in recreation now.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think just getting clarity on this will be helpful. I have no doubt everyone in the mayor's office is working very, very hard. Just want to echo constituents' request for transparency. And I think making sure that the budget workbooks that we're reviewing and that residents are looking at are reflecting what is really transparently going on. So appreciate you all working to get this all clear.
And then I would just make a suggestion that just so that we're consistent throughout the city, what we've done in the past and what I think I've seen in one of the budgets that we went through recently is when someone's taking on another role for someone or they're acting in that role, then there's a line item that says this amount is budgeted for acting whatever, or we have a stipend that is given to that person because they're filling in for, another role until that happens. I just think it makes it a little cleaner to understand whether, besides just changing someone's salary in the middle of the year and not noting it. So
Or how-
just a suggestion.
How about it goes at overtime wages? If this person is working extra time because they lost one person who was helping her, so that can be extra overtime wages.
So management employees are not entitled to overtime as it currently stands. So the additional salary for management employees is something that the administration determines is a fair wage for that time period. Union employees do receive an out-of-title allowance. There is a line item specifically for that in other budgets. It is line 105. In the case of these employees, these are management employees, so they're getting temporary salary adjustments instead.
I guess, Kyle, if you can answer, if someone can answer, what type of instance trigger like extra compensation? Because I know when I worked in rec, I was the driver, the rec aide, the program coordinator, like everything. And I just thought that when someone wasn't there, we filled in because the programs had to run. So I'm just trying to figure out at like what instance trigger extra compensation?
I'm not familiar with the language in each collective bargaining agreement. It would vary depending on which unit you're looking at. So some require fixed rate per day. I don't know specifics, but you may get an extra $5 a day if you're working at a title as a union employee. Management employees, as Laura alluded to, is more of an administrative call on how long that person is going to be out. So they will assess if this person is going to be out an extended period of time. Is it fair to give them additional compensation for that time period? And that is ultimately done by, through that group there with the administration, the mayor's office, and also with finance to make sure that, like I said, the wages that we're paying are covered. So
And I believe it was for significant time. It was for 2 to 3 months, right? It was for long.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. Yeah, so it's when you see it most commonly is when people go on parental leave, unpaid, like on FMLA, where you know that the employee, that there's going to be a vacancy for a significant amount of time. So it does not cover if somebody's on vacation or things like that. It is anything that is significant amount of time and can really hinder the operations of the department. So that is, and those conversations are had. And those requests are made by the directors or the supervising, and that gets worked through, as Kyle mentioned, through a process where it is reviewed, finance reviews it, HR reviews it. There's a real assessment in terms of how the vacancy would impact overall operations, what then the responsibility is of the person who would be getting any additional increase in salary, and that those responsibilities match with what they're doing. And again, it is under extreme circumstances, like somebody being on medical leave for months or paid family leave during parental leave.
Thank you for clarifying. Just to be clear, it does not happen if someone is gone for a day, for a week or 10 days. It's just for significant long time, a month, 2 months or 3 months.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you, Laura.
Councilman LaVar.
I have a couple of questions. And I'll stick to the line items here. So I just want to echo what everyone said about getting clarification on the numbers. I won't belabor that point. I approach the mayor's office budget and the salaries and things like that a little bit differently. I appreciate the 2025 adopted numbers and then comparison to 2026. But I would say, within the statutes and the Faulkner Act and what you're allowed to do, deputy mayors, et cetera, aides to the mayor, all of that, the mayor can structure his office the way he wants to structure it and to be able to make it work for him. That being said, I just want to ask the administration to explain, to clarify for the public and for the council, the decisions and let me backtrack. The city council, our salaries are set by ordinance, and the salaries of our aides are set by ordinance through a range. 85,000 for council salaries, part-time salaries for aides 15 to 35, full-time aides, correct me if I'm wrong, is it 40 to 75? So that's where our salaries range. The salary ranges for aides to the mayor are much higher than that, frankly, right? And then we talk about the deputy mayors and other staff. If you can explain the administration's rationale and how you arrive at the salaries and the numbers that you do, and for your own office. And then the next step for me, I'm going to ask around that, because you have discretion in being able to establish your salaries for your office. You have discretion for establishing directors' salaries throughout the city, department directors. If you could explain the rationale behind all of that for the public that is wondering and asking, as they've seen information come out on social media about the varying salaries for employees, and then how we can talk about layoffs at the same time of provisional employees who are at the lowest salary scale here in Jersey City.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I know there's been a lot of misinformation regarding what's been going on. So I think first and foremost, I started my career here as a city council aide, making $15,000 a year. I worked for that salary for almost 4 years. So I firsthand know how difficult and how much work city council aides make. I also understand the importance of you all having a fully staffed office, being able to support. We, as an administration, believe that that is what good government looks like. First and foremost, I'd like to set the record straight around that. So for the city council, in the 2025 expended budget, city council was spent $120,000 per salary. And this year, the city council is expending $175,000 per salary. So there has been an increase in the number of aides that each office gets, as well as the funding that has been happening. What we saw in 2025 was what the previous administration had done, which was had allocated and introduced $300,000 for each city council office, but then would use that money in other places like spending for overtime. So there has been an increase, and it is an increase that we, the administration, supported for all of you. Again, speaking from my own experience of being a council aide and the importance that you all need in terms of having your council office fully staffed. I will speak to the people that work in my office and how we came about and the work that they're doing. So for Deputy Mayor Bryant, I will use her as an example. She has fundraised over $4.8 million, has been able to bring in to offset and be able to offer over 600 kids in Jersey City an opportunity that they didn't have before. She has worked day in and day out, and we have also made significant cuts in other ways to be able to offset that. Isaac Smith, a person who you're familiar with, councilman, who has worked for you in the past and has been a lifelong public servant to Jersey City and had been working on the payroll tax since he was in the city council under then Councilman Solomon. We have been able to offset his salary due to the payroll tax. He is the lead person that leads that initiative alongside Corporation Counsel and other department directors to be able to do that. So we are the people that are working in our office. I'll speak to also Crystal, who has been leading the ability to raise private dollars through our Macy's initiative is a good example of that. We're able to have Macy's come in and be able to fully cover our fireworks. So our office day in and day out is bringing in revenue. We are also cutting expenses within our budget. As I mentioned before, we cut roughly $300,000 in additional expenses in other ways to help offset some of those salaries. And we have not hired the full 10 aides that we are legally allowed to. We have instead reduced that. That also has reduced our healthcare costs because we have not hired 10 aides. We have hired 7, which is a reduction in healthcare costs. Again, I just want to say that it is extremely important that staff that work for elected officials are also public servants. I myself am one of those individuals, and I think it's really important that we recognize the hard work that they do. Every member in my office has worked to bring in revenue through different ways and also improve government efficiencies across all different departments.
I appreciate the response. And I say this respectfully, that I didn't answer the question. The question is, what's the rationale and thought process? So the results are what they are today, but the salary was offered in January or February or whenever the person was hired without knowledge of what the results would be, right? And based on their past qualifications, whatever that might be. And so a determination is made on how much to offer each person, each position. I'm not naming people by name. That's not my intention here. But to explain the rationale as to why the salaries were set at the salary levels that they were set. And if the administration can just speak to that, and it could be market conditions. This is comparable to Newark or other positions, similar ranges, as well as department directors. Again, you have discretion and latitude in setting salaries. And so I'm just asking to understand what that rationale was behind it. I know at the time that some of that was explained to me. Just wanting to be on the record here for the public as well.
Yeah, certainly. So resume, public service experience, education, and again, to your point, the results, we didn't know what that was, but the expectations around what we wanted each individual member of this office to do was set in their job descriptions, which we are happy to forward over and send to you regarding what we needed to do. And as we have grown and continue to see what the scope of the fiscal crisis was, we continue to adapt and continue to grow and do more to be able to deliver for the city, for the residents of Jersey City.
Thank you.
Laura, can you speak to not, I mean, I understand what Councilman Rolando is asking, rightfully so, but I'm more so concerned about the actual department heads. This is a problem that I had with the last administration. It seems like they just max all of the directors out at the because there's a range in there as it relates to how much they get paid. And I was just wondering, like, is there like some type of rule grid that determines, like, all right, if you accomplish X, Y, and Z, then you're at this tier, and then at that tier? I'm of the opinion, like, I don't think that everyone should be maxed out. There are some directors that's better at their job than other directors. So if you can talk a little of the thinking as it relates to the heads of each department and the salaries they're currently at.
Certainly. So one thing that does not exist in the city, but that we are committed to doing is performance reviews. So those current HR department does not have a structure to be able to do performance reviews. So we are committed to making sure that we can institute a process like that to be able to then scale and make sure we're matching people's salaries to that. As it comes to department directors, though, majority of our department directors are at the recent salary from the previous administration, with the exception of those department directors that, with the advice and consent of this council, we all worked on and were and had the different salary increases. So that was just our CFO, finance director, which was a savings because he is doing the job of two. So we have that's a reduction. We are very proud that we were able to recruit our BA, Ruby Choi, to come. Again, all of that was made public and transparent to you all in terms of that salary increase. And then our Department of Public Works, which was being, as you all know, we have Director Levy that came in, and that was a small increase. It was an increase of $10,000. That's the only, everybody else has been at the same level as those previous department director heads were for their previous administration. However, I share your commitment in wanting to make sure that we have a real performance review process in place. And it is something that we will make sure to institute and can be made available, especially for department directors heads. So I share that with you.
Just, I appreciate that explanation, but just so we clear, I thought it was too high in the last administration too.
But can I tell you, Councilman, what we did, our office just did the comparison with the same municipal budget, how our other directors paid, and it is quite comparable. I would love to share with you if you want, but we did a little homework, so it is the...
From the last administration?
No, I'm talking about other municipals.
Or other cities?
Other cities,
Oh.
other government, what they are paying, yes.
I'm wondering, and it's not showing up in the presentation, but it's a policy question as it pertains to the budget. And it's really only a policy question that the mayor's office can answer, and here. So there's been conversations in the air about furloughs, and my question is whether furloughs have been contemplated in bringing this budget before the city council, and whether that's still being contemplated for the 2026 cycle. And again, I've suggested that we probably should do that and explore that. And I'd ask the business administrator as to what the steps are to doing something like that. I don't know, and I could only imagine that it starts with the mayor's office, and then it's a executive policy decision that comes down. And I know it's been suggested that some analysis was done around that. I've never seen that. Said that it wasn't substantial savings and that wouldn't and they would do more harm than good in terms of service and whatnot. Again, leading by example from the top, I've said, including the city council, in terms of furloughs, I think would put a good faith effort and face that people are sharing sacrifice from the top. So if you could just speak to the idea of furloughs and what that decision was.
Yes, certainly. So just so everybody's aware, for furloughs, they're purely voluntary. So I cannot issue or demand my staff to take a furlough. It would be at the individual in terms of that. So in terms of the ROI on that piece, it is extremely low because you can't force it. I can't mandate people to go on furloughs, but it's something I'm happy to continue to talk to you about, Councilman. I wouldn't say it's off the table, but I would just share with you that the number one hurdle on furloughs is the fact that we cannot legally mandate anybody to do furloughs, and people would have to voluntarily do that.
Okay, I appreciate looking at the information as to the voluntary nature of the whole thing, and it can't be administered from the top.
Yeah, happy to talk to you about it.
And Laura, I also asked, I don't know if it was last meeting, but if you can speak to, because, and I don't know, to be completely honest, but there is word that the individuals that were laid off, that some of their positions was covered by grants. If you can speak to the accuracy of that, and then furthermore, if you can speak to if it were, how did we come to that decision if their salary was covered by grant? Or if you know, Kyle, as it relates to the 31 individuals that were laid off?
So I'm not sure entirely what percentage of each individual. Some grant terms do change year by year, and each department does handle their own grant setup and the spending plan associated with that grant. So I do know there were quite a few individuals that did have partial offsets. There were 2 employees within community development, which are, yes, 100% funded salary on the salary level. So there's also need to consider that there's additional savings on fringe benefits. And I think from an administration perspective, that does open the opportunity to now shift other salaries onto those grants, you know, as long as it's permissible within the terms provided by the grantor. So yes, there were certain individuals that may have had partial offsets, and in some cases 100%, but that does not always factor into the decision because there is other savings associated as well with the terminations.
So as it relates strictly to community development, because you're saying that it was 2 people, so those roles are essentially filled by someone else. The roles are not vacant, right? Do we have individuals acting in those roles?
I'm not sure of the current operations. I'm just speaking to the fact
you're
that
just-
yes, there were 2.
If someone,
I think BA Choi has something to say.
Thanks. First of all, HEDC is on Monday, and I will prepare them to speak specifically about
okay.
that unit. My understanding with the grant-funded positions that were on the provisional layoffs, we are trying to look at current staff who are potentially eligible for those vacant positions to move into performing those duties. So then overall, the grant funding would pay for those employees' salaries, and therefore we would reduce their salaries from city-funded positions. Does that make sense?
Council President, if I may.
One
Just
second.
one more thing to add that, sorry, some of these grants are non-recurring, right? So some grant terms may expire midway through the year or at the end of the year. I don't have those details. I just want to point that out as well, that's, you know, something that we see, especially within heavily grant-funded office departments like the health department, where grants expire at the end of the year and there's no mechanism to fund those positions again the following year unless you're again raising it by taxation or making cuts elsewhere. So
Is there any way we can? Councilman, hold on one second. I'm sorry. I just want to record Councilperson Griffin present at 11:26 a.m. So we now have 8 council members present.
Is there any way we can get the information on when these salaries expire through the grants, and also the savings on I guess benefits and fringe?
Yeah, we'll go back to the departments to gather that detail and, put together a more, full analysis on what the annualized savings are this year and going into next year.
Councilwoman Little.
Uh, There has been a lot of public outcry over the 2 deputy mayor positions earning $200,000 each. I see both of these individuals working very hard every day, but I think there's not a lot of clarity in the shoes of the public. I think the public is not understanding what exactly they are doing. So I would appreciate if you could clarify for the record, what does the Deputy Mayor of Housing and Economic Development focus on, and how is his role different from the Director of HEDC? And what does the Deputy Mayor of Education work on, and how is her role different from the Board of Education?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned previously in my slides, when it comes to Deputy Mayor Podar, there's 2 things that I think we have seen previously, which is the difference between the HEDC director and Deputy Mayor Podar's. Deputy Mayor Podar is supporting and helping advance mission-driven and holding the HEDC director accountable. As Councilman Gilmore just mentioned, right, our department directors make significant amount of money, and we want to make sure that we are working, not only supporting them, but also holding them accountable to deadlines, to clear units of affordable housing that are being built, to making sure that that change is coming from the top all the way down, but by supporting that department, by also giving them very clear direction, because there is very specific things that need to happen. We can't do it all, and we need to be very explicit about what they're doing. So Deputy Mayor Podar has a long history and experience of negotiating redevelopment deals and making sure that our residents get their fair share when it comes to that, which is a core priority of this administration, and as well as driving economic impact. In addition to that, as I mentioned before, other things that the deputy mayor does is also work to coordinate and make sure that HEDC is not working in silos. A lot of times, a lot of what has happened and what has driven costs when it comes to government inefficiencies is that department directors don't work together, that it is not clear what the mission is, what people are working towards. And so our deputy mayors work as that liaison, work as that director that helps lead and connect the dots across all different department directors. Our HEDC directors, they're in a lot of management of staff at the HEDC level. You'll all hear how much staff is under HEDC. They have to work to and attend to personnel matters, a lot of technical assistance, overseeing division directors. That is more than a full-time job when it comes to actually keeping a department and organization running. So the deputy mayor is a person who ensures that we are giving clarity, responsibility, holding people to deadlines, being able to really deliver when it comes to that front. And he has tremendous amount of experience when it comes to both housing as well as economic development. He has worked at the national level when it comes to driving economic impact in communities, and continues to do that. He also works very closely with the JCEDC to ensure that the priorities of this administration are aligned and where we are investing our money, and how we are driving economic growth through the city. When it comes to Deputy Mayor Bryant, we have spoken to her. She supports the Recreation Department and works hand in hand with the leadership at the Recreation Department. She also works hand in hand with the library, making sure that those programming, there's clear coordination again, and that we're maximizing the reach in every corner of Jersey City when it comes to delivering for all different people in Jersey City, not just youth, not just students, seniors, and other folks, people with disabilities, to ensure that the programming that we do offer as a city is being maximized and as many people as possible are able to do that. Deputy Mayor Bryan also drives economic revenue into the city. As I mentioned before, she has raised $4.5 million through a culmination of grants as well as philanthropic organizations that bring real investment. She has also brought in she has brought in 116 different companies and industries to partner with us to be able to give Jersey City youth jobs. So that is a clear mission driven that really expands what we have been able to do. We more than doubled the amount of youth jobs, and that was only in 6 months. There is more that we continue to do, more revenue that we'll continue to bring. I also want to note that HEDC is also brings in revenue through permitting and other construction codes, and Deputy Mayor Porter also focuses on that as well. So both of those positions are bring in revenue into the city through different creative ways in which I spoke to earlier. We cannot just cut and cut and cut. We have to do that, but we also have to have people who are looking for creative, out-of-the-box solutions to be able to deliver core city services, because that is what Jersey City deserves.
Laura, I would just say this, as it relates to the Deputy Mayor of Education. I think that, we have to find a way, and this goes for the school board too, just working together in unison. It is, this is mind-boggling how we haven't been able to get it together with the school board as it relates to partnering together, because at the end of the day, these are all our kids. It's not, it belongs to the school from 8 to 4, and then it belongs to it's all our kids. And this the thing that I hate about politics in a nutshell, is that when we're at odds with each other, the kids and the constituency are the people that suffers the most. So I just hope that we can mesh this relationship with the school board. You know, I mean, some people are not elated that the superintendent got a raise, but the reality is she's here and she's here for the next 5 years. We have to work with them. We have to figure it out. Ideal relationship is, you know, us using these schools for our summer camps, for our after-school programs. Again, doing everything we can do to ensure that these children are receiving a fair chance at succeeding in life. But I do, just one question. So every administration, for the most part, have had 2 deputy mayors. Do we know, and again, I don't know, do we know, like, what were the salaries then compared to now? Not too far back, but like in recent, the last 2 years or whatever.
We didn't have deputy mayors the last 2 years.
Yeah, so the previous administration didn't have the deputy mayors for the last 2 years. I'm happy to follow up with you. I wouldn't know what the last, so I'm happy to follow up with you, Councilman.
It was budgeted for 154,000.
154. And they didn't have it the last, did they have it?
They haven't had it, I don't think, since I've been on council, or maybe when I first got on council, but
I think 2018 was the last time that there was a deputy mayor. So again, just want to make sure I am factual in what I give you. So I'm happy to make sure we provide that information offline. I don't want to say it off the cuff.
Okay.
yeah, that was the number I got from the finance director, 154.
What's the information that's going to be provided?
Oh, just what the previous salary was of the deputy mayor under the previous administration.
Yeah, I would like to follow up on that, and just the entire mayor's office budget and salaries for each of the positions. If we could get a detailed line item, the 2025 mayor's office budget with, if there were placeholders for vacancies, even so forth, the deputy mayors, whatever like they probably budgeted for that, I assume, but didn't fill the positions. If we can get all of that itemized.
Happy to provide that.
Can I just follow up on that? Just so looking at the line, your budget worksheet, one of the aides to the mayor, the 2025 adopted budget says the salary was for the previous administration, 116,905. My understanding is, again, we'll look at the final numbers, but that was the same salary for the communications director in the previous administration who resided under the mayor's office. And so that communications, that director, that role currently exists, but it doesn't exist in this mayor's office budget. It falls under, I assume, the communications office. And it's been a while again since I've been here, so I'm not sure if that falls under the BA's office. Yeah, okay. And so we'll see that there. But in terms of kind of, again, that kind of making the comparisons to 2025 versus 2026, I guess I would say that those salaries were part of that budget and they're not reflected here. So kind of the apples to apples comparison again, we would show those numbers from 2025, even if they're reallocated or if they've been moved to other offices. To that end, I'm going to ask for some additional information from the finance and BA's office. The positions, those positions, particularly those communications positions, if you could give me the history of where that position and that line item resided when it was first created or funded in the 2026 budget, and then if there were changes in how that line item, that position was then transferred, and how that transferred in terms of the accounting of it within each office. So for example, and I'm just hypothesizing here, and it doesn't have to just be that position, any position. We talked about the scheduler and so forth. So if the position was transferred was established in one office, whether it's in this office or another office, in January 15th, and then that position was moved to another department on June 1st, the salary from June 15th to June 1st, where was it? Again, I don't know about the accounting terminology here, but where was it accounted for, debited in our books around that? And did that, when the transfer happened, then transfer the whole expense from January to June? You may be able to answer that question now, or if you want to wait till later, I'm happy for you to do the necessary research on that.
Yes, similar to the conversation earlier, yes. In some cases, employees have moved from one office to another, and accordingly, we have moved the full salary. From an accounting perspective, we want to make sure we capture the wages effective the date of the transfer. Some transfers may be retroactive on paper, just to properly fit the budgets as the plans are presented. So I can do that for you. That is the intent of the workbooks, right? This is not something that we're required to submit to council for approval. It is to kind of give you insight on what makes up the legal lines. So I can work on that, but you will see those details as you go through each department. If someone was initially funded in the mayor's office and they were transferred elsewhere, like communications, right? You'll see in communications that position as well. So it's just a matter of doing some more manual work to give a full picture of that.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question. Or
Can I just say one more thing? I will definitely work with Kyle to assess the level of our effort to put that information together. I'm taking a lot of notes at every budget hearing of all the information requests from the council. And I completely understand the need to provide that information so you can accurately review every budget, make, the decisions that you need to make in terms of putting forward amendments, and also respond to public requests for this information. The challenge, and just to be very transparent with everyone, is that it is a very long list of information requests. So I'm going to work with the various departments to assess the level of effort and share back with you how long it will take to get some of that information. Again, just to manage expectations because we have limited staff and some of this information is manual or it requires going into many different databases that are outdated in order to collect the information.
That's fair. Thank you.
Ma-
So Councilman is asked for deputy mayor's salary and all of that. Can you also share when you share that, the responsibility? And were there other positions in the past where they were doing the same thing but different positions, or they were not called deputy mayors? Right now, two deputy mayors, the responsibility sheet, if you can share the position has, they have multiple position or what exactly they are doing, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think I made an earlier commitment to share full job descriptions for every person in our office. So that I think should cover that. And then I think the analysis that Councilman Navarro asked for should cover then the question. Yep. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Madam President, we're coming up on 12 p.m. Director
Yes.
Goodman has been very patient. Should
I
we
am going,
recess or?
I'm going to
Um,
ask if the council is willing that we push through. If you all are not willing, then we will break at 12 and make a request, as we did of public safety, for a second session. But if you are willing, I am going to ask that we push through today. And we have the DPW session at 1 p.m. also. So if we're pushing through, we're pushing all the way through.
Motion.
Motion, but hopefully we get a 15-minute break to eat something.
Okay, so I need you all to wrap this up by 12:45 so you could get a break before DPW. Hopefully you'll be done before then.
Are we good to have
Are there
We should ask,
additional questions?
Director Goodman?
perhaps we can ask Director
Oh,
Goodman.
well,
if he's
Director
willing to-
Goodman, do you have
out.
anything else? to do? I already checked with our clerk, but you're good to stay?
I am.
Okay, do we have additional questions?
I had one question for the mayor's office, but I think it will be quick because it's.
No, go ahead. We can still,
Thank you.
I'm not stopping your questions. I just wanted to address the time. You can still ask questions on the mayor's workbook.
Thank you. So the transition team, the Infrastructure One transition team on public assets, safe streets and sustainability have made the recommendation for moving sustainability out of infrastructure and into a mayor's office, similar to cultural affairs. This is because currently sustainability sits in infrastructure, forestry sits in DPW, and parks sit in recreation. And so having them as a mayor's office would allow them to be more cross-cutting and interact and sort of not be as siloed and bring the different relevant entities together more easily. Obviously, that's not in this budget, but is there progress being made towards that? And is that something we should expect to see in a future budget?
Yeah, similar to the RRC question. So we will be, again, looking at that through the reorganization process. We share that commitment. That commitment is still something we are looking to do, but we want to make sure that we are moving accordingly as part of a full reorganization, as we have other requests such as RRC to be brought under the mayor's office. So it will be part of that work.
Okay, thank you.
Can we just provide clarification in the workbook on the, one second, I'm turning my computer on, but the payroll tax line where we are showing a decrease of 44,000, but there's nothing budgeted for 2025 or suggested in 2026. Can we explain, probably
was the,
Kyle, that line?
That was the Isaac.
Right. But where is it? Where is the 44 coming from?
Payroll tax revenues.
Yes, so that's due to the recent change in the code that allows us to take up to 3% of annual collections for administrative costs. We do have an internal spreadsheet of all of the items that we're looking to offset, which I will share with the council.
Okay. And then I just have a organizational chart question. If we have staff that are reporting to the deputy mayors, why have we chosen not to include that staff in the mayor's office, like directly under them? So it's my understanding, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that the deputy mayor recreation has two staff members that report directly to her. I'm assuming they're probably in the recreation budget, but why wouldn't we have them directly under her if that's their direct report?
Yeah, so I would say that the one that they're staff that are in the recreation department, and so that is where they live. They work with the deputy mayor. Again, it's that innovative, different approach to government where we think it is very important that the people who have those roles have a direct line of communication and reporting structure to the mayor's office, as it is a core priority of the mayor to advance those initiatives. So it is, as we can appreciate, sometimes org charts are not fully reflective of how government really works in that way. So that we have those folks are in the recreation department, they work there. There's just I wouldn't say it's an informal, but that is just the way that we're operating when it comes to the deputy mayor. There is no office of the deputy mayor, again, per the Faulkner Act, so we are not able to do that.
Okay. Any other questions, council? Yep. I know this question has come up a lot, and Councilman Griffin just mentioned it for people who are looking for Stu. Stu is Edward.
Yeah, Edward is his name, his legal name.
Sorry, Stu.
Where is Stu? I unfortunately do have to leave at 12, but I think that between Director Goodman and my Deputy Chief of Staff, Crystal, we should be able to answer all things pertaining to the Office of Cultural Affairs. So I just want to thank you all for your time and for your questions, and look forward to continuing to working with all of you and providing the information. I also would like to say, for the record, it is uncommon for the Chief of Staff to be here today and to talk to and speak to and answer questions about the mayor's office budget. So I hope for the public and for the record that you show our commitment to transparency and working together from our administration with all of you every day to continue to tackle the issues that we see before the city. So I just want to thank you for the time and for the questions.
Thank you, Laura.
Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Director Goodman, who has been waiting patiently.
Good morning, Council President,
Good morning.
council members. Is it still morning?
You got 2 minutes.
Look, I have a background in theater. We can do this.
We'll be happy to do it in 2 minutes.
Edward's back.
Exactly. So happy to present on the Office of Cultural Affairs. This has been an unprecedented year for us with some truly astounding moments for our country that we have been working very hard on to bring events here for the public. As one of the most culturally diverse cities in the nation, Jersey City has a vibrant arts and culture scene that grows stronger each year, and my office works very hard to support that growth. Our core mission as Cultural Affairs is to support and advocate for the arts in Jersey City, to provide opportunities, resources, and education for artists of all disciplines, and to coordinate public programming on behalf of the Office of the Mayor. So some of the core responsibilities of the Office of Cultural Affairs is the coordinating and permitting of all public events across Jersey City, including festivals and flag raisings. We administer the Arts and Culture Trust Fund and the Artist Grant programs under that fund. We run the Mary McLeod Bethune Life Center programming and the mural program. And we have community partnerships, artist support, and public programming across all boards. For the Arts and Culture Trust Fund, now in its 5th cycle, my office has administered $1.1 million in grants to individual artists and organizations. That's through the general operating grants, program grants, arts education grants, and an individual artist fellowship program, which is administered by the Jersey City Arts Council, who acts as our partner through this fund. There were 105 awards granted for the 2026-2027 grant cycle. We will be bringing a full and comprehensive report to you at the end of that grant cycle, as well as for the cycle that has just closed as of June 30th, to show you where the funds went, who they served, and how this helped the public life of Jersey City residents directly. Those grants were 50 grants, 13 arts education, 22 operating grants, and 20 of those fellowships I had mentioned previously. We also welcomed over 250,000 visitors to the July 4th and America 250 celebration. Next slide. So in doing more with less, we certainly delivered on the programming end through sponsorships, grants, and community partnerships. We were able to have 4 World Cup activations across the city. We started with the Flag Cities event, and that was to kick off the World Cup celebration on June 12th. We had a Bergen Square Egyptian cultural activation on June 21st. The World on Central, which was July 10th and 11th. And we closed out the World Cup celebrations with the Around the World Watch Party. Of course, this is on top of the July 4th celebration. My office has permitted over 200 public events since January. We are on track to permit almost 400 events, working closely with constituents across the city. And that those events include Riverview Jazz Festival, the Night Market, Salsa on Grove, and Salsa on Central. Our festivals, our parades, you name it, it comes through our office, and we coordinate. Speaking of cross-departmental coordination, my office coordinates with all the departments that interact with each and every public event to make sure that we're all talking to each other, that we're working through all of the detail of each of these public events so that they can be executed safely and properly permitted. We partnered with Macy's to deliver 4th of July fireworks at no cost to the city for the first time ever, with all programming funded by the grants and sponsorships. And then we distributed programming for the World Cup across wards B, C, D, and E, so small business corridors shared in the economic development of this global event. The last thing I would like to point out for you is that my office secured $660,000 in outside sponsorships, over $260,000 for World Cup programming, and approximately $400,000 for 4th of July programming, plus a $50,000 NJEDA Choose New Jersey grant for World Cup Community Initiative programming.
Council, questions for Director Goodman?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about line item 312, professional consultant and specialized services. This is $225,000. This is up $43,000 from the previous year. Can you elaborate on what these services are, provide us with a list of the contracts, and comment on whether any of them might be able to be brought in-house?
The contractual we're talking about which line item?
312.
312, that would cover Jersey City's longest running public concert series, Summerfest, out of Liberty State Park, held twice a week in Ward A. That would also cover our movies in the park contract, which is something that we have discussed bringing in-house. However, movies in the park, it does cover every single municipal park across the city. And those movies don't start until after sundown. So sometimes close to 9 o'clock at night, which is after our operating hours for my staff. So the overtime that would be incurred to actually be able to execute that, as well as the part-time salaries, we've been comparing that and weighing that also with labor and honestly burnout, as compared to having the movie operator come with the screen and operate the movies as a contractor.
Can I follow up on that?
So,
On that?
sorry, can I ask my follow-up first and then you go, and then Councilman Navarro, I think. So your determination is that it would be more expensive to bring them in-house based on the numbers you've looked at?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Thank you, Director Goodman.
Yes.
Thank you, Director
Thank you.
Goodman. Speak here. So for movies in the park, there are multiple parks, they are organized. Neighborhood associations have been organizing movies in the park monthly. So when did we start doing this? Organizing movie in the park from city? And is it something we can put it on hold because there is anyways one movie in a month already organized by neighborhood associations?
Thank you for your question. We could certainly look at that. The Movies in the Park does serve every park across the whole city. So we have seen some downtown parks that do have movies in the park as a regular series. That would impact all of our wards to stop that programming, and it does give a safe activity for our youth. So we would like to think of creative ways to be able to continue to offer it. I will say that for those parks and SIDS that have movie series, we do not show a movie in those areas.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure, thank you.
Staying on the contractual 312, so 314, is that, it got zeroed out in this budget? The request was 234,000. Were those dollars moved into the 312 or some of them?
These are savings from our July 4th expenses, which typically have been paid through the general budget. And we were able to pay for the July 4th expenses through private sponsorship.
And those private dollars don't end up in our budget anyway, in
What?
terms of being reflected in the real, because the city council accepted those donations. We approved them. I know we approved the EDCs. I remember the EPA, Exchange Place Alliance, approvals for that. Do they get reflected in this budget?
So as a point of clarity, the JCEDC had the fireworks contract.
Oh, they picked it up on their own, in their own budgets. Okay. Then what about all the other funds, donations from private foundations? Do they end up in our budget or are they?
No, the EDC received those and then they paid the expenses out of that.
I see.
So
So why are we,
So the budget was removed, those line items were a savings on our general budget. That's why they were removed from our budget.
the council just recently approved a number of private donations for senior things, Rock the Block, whatever the programs are called, and other things. I don't even recall exactly, but are those all being routed through EDC after we approve them, or how's that?
So I think there's two situations here. Some are direct allocations through the EDC that the city may or may not have accepted. I'd have to go back and look at the original resolutions that the council approved to accept the funds, or if the funds went directly to them, I'm not sure. Donations, on the other hand, those are funds that are in a trust fund. So there are dedication by rider resolutions approved by the council that then it gets approved by the state. That does not go through the budget. That is the purpose of the rider. Essentially, you're saying the city cannot reasonably anticipate a certain amount of donations in any given year, and you also cannot anticipate the expenses. So when you get that rider approved, the city maintains it on our ledger as a reserve account that does not flow through any particular office budget lines. So that's the case for the donations.
So those dedication by riders, do they show up as an account in our budget
No.
at all?
No.
So where do they reside, the expenses?
On the general ledger. So the general ledger consists of every fund that the city maintains. General fund, capital fund, state and federal grants, dog trust license, and there's community development. There are multiple funds that the city maintains on its ledger. The budget that's presented to council and the one we're discussing now is the current fund. So that is why it's not presented here. Those reserves are in a trust fund, right? They're not necessarily,
They don't show up in the budget worksheets.
or the
They
budget
show up
document.
in the,
No, only if it's a grant, a direct grant through the city. Donations are handled a little differently.
see.
So, Direct, I see that recreation and educational materials doubled 55, from 55,000 to $106,000 dollars from last year to this year. Can we discuss that and why such a huge increase?
Certainly. In this case, there was no increase. This was a moving in between the line items per finance where they wanted different expenses to come out of.
Explain.
I mean, it's,
So because it's reading now, it's reading that we spent 55,000 and then now it's look like there's a draft for, you requested 100, no, well, you actually requested 147, and the draft is for 106.
Yeah, so there was a request, like you're pointing out, there is a request for 147 and we allocated 106, which is still up from last year. The exact details I'm not entirely certain on, but I'm not sure if that's entirely reshifting expenses from other lines because the request was more than what it was last year. So I think,
Kyle, well, we don't want you to speculate. We want
Yeah, I'm not.
actually what transpires. So if you can't speak to exactly what transpired right now, and if you can send the council that and write it, because we have to be able to answer to this stuff. And I don't want to say, well, we think this or we think that.
Right.
So we can't speak specifically to what transpired. If we can get that in writing as soon as possible.
yeah, we'll add it, Ruby will add it to her list. But we'll pull the actual expenses year to date to make sure that, everything aligns, accordingly with this budget. Like I said, though, the request was higher than what it was appropriated last year. So the increase seems justifiable based on that fact alone, but we'll circle back on what these expenses actually are.
And Christine, I don't want, if we need to circle back, we can, but I think to clarify, the question is for line item 212, what do you budget for recreation, education materials and supplies? What is that money being spent for?
this is everything that has to do with our public events. I mean, some of this, I can get you more of the detail here. But we're talking about supplies that are needed for the Bethune Center, equipment for running of the classes. Our educational teachers would also come out of that are running the classes.
Yeah, if we can.
Because this is normally the 2026 requests come from the department, right? And from the director. These are the requests that you made. This year, you feel like we need $147,000 in order to successfully have you run the programs that you need to run. Or did somebody else make this request?
No, I made this request.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I'll
And
send you all the details.
and the administration is saying, they're willing to fund $106,000 of that. So director will get back to us with, I guess, exactly what she's looking to do this year that's different than 2025.
Director, if you
Thank you.
can speak to, I see that there was a few individuals, it looks like they went from full-time to part-time. If you can speak on the rationale for that and how does that, 1, 2, 3, I think it was,
I think there were two.
it looks like 3. If you can speak to that as it relates to the availability for the services that they were providing when they were full-time.
Sure. So there were two full-time staff members that moved to part-time. They moved at their own request. They work at the Bethune Center, and ultimately the flexibility that being a part-timer provided to the center was also a good fit. So part of it was their availability and wanting to move to a more flexible schedule. And then the other part of that, why it moved forward, was because we were able to do more coverage throughout the day, later event coverage, and early morning coverage,
So.
without going into overtime.
My question is because they were full-time at one point. So who's filling in what they were doing now that they're part-time?
Right. It's a great question. I mean, we're really working hard to have as much coverage as possible over there, but because they're part-time now, we can actually have where we had gaps before because they had set hours, we're able to cover more of those outside of the 9 to 5s with their time
No,
and optimize the work that they're doing.
I guess let me ask the question in a different way. Are we deficient in providing services because like these people were full-time at one point and now they're part, because we're not bringing in new people, correct?
Right. Yeah, it is a stretch. It is a stretch for Bethune Center, absolutely, just in terms of how many people are working really hard to get the work done there. So one of the people who moved to part-time did events. So what we're trying to do is make the most of the time that she is on site for her event planning. And the director is working very closely with her over at the Bethune Center to make sure that when she's not in the office, that these projects are moving forward. We really do want to continue building on those public events that have grown at the Bethune Center over the last couple of years with her.
So you're confident that we won't have a diminished level of services being at these individuals went part-time.
Yes,
Okay. And this is something that essentially they've requested.
yes.
And okay.
Director,
Mhm.
you please talk about line item 309, meal and food expenses?
Sure. So most of our weekly spend has to do with our performers that are in the field. And when we are at events at our peak hours, our peak season in the summer, to make sure that we have coolers of water and ice for performers and for staff and volunteers. That is the one consistent spend. There are a few events that we do throughout the year where we cover the food expenses. These are not our flag raisings. We do not pay for food for flag raisings other than putting out bottled water when requested. This would be for our Women of Action ceremony. And I can give you the list of all the other events, but for events that we present where we would have a reception.
Director, line item 312, professional consultant and then specialized services. Last year was 182. You requested 100 and the draft is reflecting 225. If you can, well, I guess if 100 was requested, why does the draft reflects 225?
So I guess that's more of a
Finance.
finance
yeah.
question. Why
Well, am I
are
reading this
why
wrong?
are we allocating $125,000 more than the director requested?
Just a reminder that these budget requests or the requests for department budget proposals, it go out earlier in the year, and throughout the year, needs change and budgets need to be adjusted accordingly. The director will have to get back to you on, again, how that's being allocated and what has changed from the initial plans. But that is just a across the board explanation on why you may see introduced budget lines higher than what was proposed. Same thing for 309, right? They anticipated using $11,500 on for food for these events. if more events pop up and there's a need to allocate additional funds, we're addressing that in the introduced budget.
So
So is that the explanation, is more events? I guess that's more Director Goodman's.
I guess we're confused because, and I understand what Kyle is saying. These are submitted at the beginning of the year and sometimes those expenses change. So, I mean, was there a conversation where Director Goodman said she needed more money, or that's what we're trying to determine here?
Yeah, I think Director Goodman can follow up on this, but I do believe the conversations between when the department requests their budget and when we had our most recent updates to 2026 draft is a conversation between the department director, finance. So I think the details of that, if you don't have it on hand, Christine, we can follow up.
I just want to say this, y'all. I don't want to be a Stegler, but the reality is we're in a financial crisis, right? These are budget hearings. These are directors that's been here for whatever amount of years. At the very least, if nothing else, everybody should be prepared to answer these questions that's asked. Because here's what's going to happen. The public is watching now. They're not getting an explanation now, and then we may get an explanation in writing. So now it's going to look like essentially people are coming unprepared to present, right? And it's not a matter of a difference between 5 or 10,000. It's requested 100 and a draft 120. That's 125,000 additional. So we just have to have explanations for these questions because the public is everybody's under scrutiny. If you put too much jelly on a bagel, they're gonna wonder why you use excessive jelly, and rightfully so. People's taxes have gone up 15%, and this is the other element that the constituency is being anal about. It's like you guys are keep asking this, and we can't get these type of questions. This is frustrating. This is frustrating. So if going forward, if you guys can we can make sure that these department heads, and granted, some of them are new, this is their first chance. I'm not sympathetic towards that because everybody signed up to do a job and everybody's getting $100 and some thousand, some people $200 and some $1,000. So we have to be prepared for these budget questions, please.
Sorry, can I add something? So just for the record, like the line item may seem as though there was an increase, but oftentimes these items are used interchangeably. And so although there is an increase in that specific line item, overall, the total, there is a significant decrease in what we've seen from 2025 to 2026. Just want to put that on the record.
How is it a decrease? I'm looking.
So if you look at 2025, the total for the line items was 420.
Jay.
Sorry. 2025 was $595,339. And for 2026, it's $423,000.
Oh, you're talking about in totality.
Yeah, in total. Well, it's
but-
just for the line
think
items
that
for
what-
other expenses.
What Crystal is explaining is what Director Goodman said, was that they're moving money around,
Correct.
right? And that's fine if that's the explanation, but now it just seems like the director isn't sure what's going on in the budget because she said they're moving money around. And then we said there was a conversation where she needed more money in certain line items. So if we're padding certain line items in order to compensate for something else, we need to just say that.
It has to do with how we're paying people. So, which line item are we paying musicians out of? Is it considered a contract? Is it considered a professional service? So that's why the movement.
That's why I asked earlier if contractual services got zeroed out. You said it was all due to fireworks. I was wondering if that was some of those contracts were moved from 314 to 312. I'll wait for you to come back with the information and explanation. But the question is valid, increasing from 100,000 to 225,000. I'd like to see an itemization to follow up on Councilman Gilmore's request that of what the 225,000 comprises that.
Even though the overall budget, the number is lower, the line items are specific, right? So when you see things doubling, it's concerning if there's no explanation to that.
Sure. And I can give you a little more detail on these contractual services as well. This is when we use outside audio companies to be able to do events that we're committed to in the community. So if we are already doing 2 or 3 different events and we can't staff something that we've committed to, we would run the sound through an independent vendor. That would be an example of a contract service.
So you're talking about Summerfest in Liberty State Park where the sound system are different than usual.
We run the sound system for most of our events, but the ones that we can't, we need to contract out.
So you're talking about big events where you have to contract.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question on line 304. Where is the office renting? What is that for?
When we need to fulfill tents, tables, chairs beyond what we have in our capacity, things of that nature.
Oh, so it's not physical space rental, it's equipment rental? Okay, thank you. And also looking forward to movie in the park this Friday. Lilo and Stitch, Boyd McGinnis, if anybody wants to come.
Great plug.
My daughter's top 5 movie.
Director, if you can speak to what dues are related to subscriptions?
Sure, that would be our ASCAP,
What's
ASCAP.
ASCAP?
Yes, and other related licensing to be able to perform music.
I'm just going to come back to the rents number of 40,000 and looking at every line, just going line item by line item. And the information I have about expenditures to date and last year's expenditures indicate that last year's rents expended were $26,676. And so not sure if that's necessary. I mean, 40,000 provides a buffer. Oh, no, your draft is 30,000. Never mind, I'm good. You're good with that. Thank you.
I actually have a question on rentals. And did you say 30,000? Would it be more, would it be better to just take that money and purchase? Then that way we're not renting the following year because we have the equipment?
So we do have equipment in stock, and as much as possible, we do use equipment. But we do support all departments across the city. And so there are, it just when it becomes a capacity issue.
So these determinations reflect, are those people part of the 31 for the recently layoffs? 'Cause I see 2 terminated, 1 7/10, another one 7/16.
Yes.
So yeah, one was last year, and then we did lose an employee. Yes.
So those 2 were part of the recent 31.
There was one was from 2025.
Oh, that's why it says no backfill. And then a recent one, okay. All right.
Council, any other questions for Director Goodman?
I'm just going to go back to line 101. You mentioned the need for staff to do overtime line 103 rather. Is that what it is?
103.
One is overtime,
Yeah.
yes.
Overtime. Because of times of events and things of that nature. I'm just wondering if there are staff, if the schedule for staff could be a start time, like an afternoon, evening, staff member as opposed to everyone, I don't know what the schedules are, but rather than have someone scheduled from 8 to 4, 9 to 5, someone scheduled from 12 to 8, or something to that effect. It's my understanding, and I could be wrong, we haven't done recreation yet, but that's some of the recreation employees have nighttime, afternoon shifts because the kids and the after hours and things of that nature. Can we do the same thing here in cultural affairs? Again, to address the overtime issues.
Thank you. It's a great suggestion. We do stagger our start times. So the cultural affairs staff start everywhere between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. and go later. But we also run up against other daytime events that also need audio support. And so if we start them later, then sometimes we need those early morning, we need a microphone early in the morning. So either way, we kind of run up against it, but we do try and stagger our times, and I can look into seeing if we could do further staggering to speak to your point.
Motion.
Second.
I do have a question. It doesn't relate to the budget, more like the organizational chart. So I have a constituent who's been calling since May to put on an event for mental illness and mental health, yes, on MLK. Now, I know a few weeks ago MLK was blocked off, but what's happening is she'll call one person, they'll send it to another person, then they'll give her an answer, and then, or they'll give her information, she takes care of it, and then they're telling her she needs to do something else, then do something else, and now they're trying to get her to move it, right? But she wants to do it in this particular area because that's where the need is, right? And I'm just hoping to find a solution for her, one, and two, everyone in that office is on the same page, because it can get real frustrating because she's been at it since May, and we're looking to host this event August 29th, which is practically next week. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not asking you to speak to that or anything. I just, just let your staff know that they should be on the same page. If they don't know if they don't know the answer, to come to you, and figure it out, instead of people, just getting this runaround, because I don't know how many other people that may have happened to, right? And we don't want that to be the norm, especially when people are trying to provide activities and service for the community.
Thank you. I will make a note of that and speak to the staff on that.
Motion.
We're good. We're good, Amanda. You can accept that motion.
Okay. Motion to adjourn at
Second.
12:33 p.m. Motion made by Councilperson Gilmore, seconded by Councilperson Griffin. On the motion to adjourn at 12:33 by acclamation, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director.